Huge ACC dub for the Fighting Jackson Holzers. Yeah, let's bring in the squad.
You're talking ball with the ACC Squad. From Florida State to North Carolina, from Syracuse to Miami, and from NC State to California, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming ACC weekend. Hang on, it could get loud, it could get heated, and it will definitely be fun. Squad up, you're part of the ACC Squad.
This episode of the ACC Squad is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. A lot of teams were on bye last weekend, but it didn't stop some important games from happening. We are the ACC Squad. I'm Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We got Jackson Holzer from Locked On Syracuse, who got the dub over Kenton Gibbs and Dalton Pence from Locked On Louisville. We got JJ Jackson from Locked On Blue Devils. They've got an important job this weekend against the Florida State Seminoles at home. Of course, Grayson Dalton Pence with us as well from Locked On Louisville. Grayson Boone from Locked On Wolfpack. I feel like the answer to this question has got to be Jackson Holzer today, but I'll ask, who's buying the first round?
I'll take it. Big win over NC State. We handled our business. We were the favorite. 24-17 wasn't a perfect game, but you know what? Kyle McCord didn't put the ball in harm's way. They ran the ball effectively. They got the W. I think it would have been a whole lot worse if we had a kicker, but that's besides the point. Now we're sitting at 5-1 at the halfway point. It's a good start. Next week is Pitt. That is going to be a big one for Syracuse and whether or not this team is really a contender or not.
Yeah, I mean, to the victor goes the spoils. There was a team that beat themselves, and there's a team that beat the other team. I'll let you figure out which one NC State was on Saturday night. I mean, the story for the Wolfpack, you had not just one turnover, but 3 turnovers in Syracuse territory. That is ultimately the story of the ballgame. When you only lose by 7 points, but Syracuse puts up 21 points off of 3 turnovers, there's the story of the game. Now, yes, credit to Kyle McCord. As many times as he did throw it, did not throw a single interception because I was sitting there waiting for it to happen. He has his Kyle McCord moments, never came. Syracuse played a good game. I also agree with Jackson. If they had a little bit more faith in their kicker, I think the score would have looked differently. But Syracuse wins by 7. They earn the win.
I think that Syracuse's kicker being like, oh, if you would have been different, everything would have gone even worse. Are y'all out of y'all minds? According to win percentage by like who won each play, NC State was in one of the highest percentiles of every team in the nation and lost this football game.
That's also
I'm sorry to tell you, the story shouldn't be, oh, well, if Syracuse trusted their kicker more, if NC State's kicker could have hit one, the game would have been much closer. If they didn't, I think Grayson undersold it, talking about they turned it over 3 times in Syracuse territory. In the 30 or deeper, all 3 of them. In the 30 or deeper. This game, to me, showed that NC State got a bad case. One of the worst cases of can't get right-itis I have ever seen. It was abysmal from NC State in a bunch of ways, and the refereeing was abysmal too, which I have talked about ad nauseum, saying, hey, it's not for one team or the other. There's no conspiracy for Miami. There's no conspiracy for Syracuse. It's just the officiating in the ACC is so god-awful. We need to institute something because somehow players are getting their helmets knocked off when nobody's touching them. Somehow, players are getting held by a mile. We're not saying anything about it. Somehow, players are stepping out of bounds. We can't see it, even through review. So, I'm looking at this game.
I'm going to cut you off there. They did see that he stepped out of bounds, but they ruled that he was forced out of bounds. That's what they said. He was forced out of bounds by like a little love tap by the Syracuse defender. It was on the 80-yard touchdown play. I'm sorry. If that is a force out of bounds, then every tackle on the planet is unnecessary roughness.
But you get what I'm saying.
Officiating is terrible no matter what. No matter what.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying. This officiating is problematic, period. I'm not saying it's problematic.
I love this song.
It's terrible.
This is my favorite song. We should have a barbershop, what is this, sextet, and just have a full-on disgrace to the ACC song because officiating.
Well, that would be a quintet because I'll have to keep my my mouth shut with the way that some of the calls have gone this year.
Actually, yeah.
Don't worry, Donno. It's coming. Miami's going to get a call against them.
For sure.
You're going to be like, what the bleep? It
won't come this week.
It's everyone.
It's not coming this week against Louisville. I promise you, you take to the bank. It's minus 650 the odds of Miami getting every call going their way this week. Trust me. That's nothing against Miami. It's because the ACC is under contract to officiate Louisville a certain way, it seems.
But even with Donno, the no kneel down game, people forget that was a fumble that shouldn't have been ruled a fumble. And Donno and I talked about the illegal man downfield in the Cal and Miami game, where there was also a face mask in that same play against Cam Ward that was missed. This is infuriating because all of these massive plays, these are not small calls being missed. So again, NC State did not show up. They did have, or I'm sorry, let me not say it didn't show up. In the biggest moments where the game mattered most, all of a sudden they forgot how to play football, forgot how to hold on to the ball and whatnot. But the narrative that, if Syracuse just trusted their kicker. Well, if you take away 3 plays from NC State, this is not even an argument of who wins this game, even if you trust your kicker.
We won the game.
Well, and that was there were several close games. There were several close games in the ACC over the weekend. And another one of those was Dalton Pence's Louisville Cardinals against Virginia. Now and we were talking a little off air. You seem pretty down on the Cardinals right now. I mean, I will say I was very impressed by the performance of Isaac Brown, who wins ACC Rookie of the Week, finally dethroning Eli Holstein, who had taken it every single other week of the season, at least in the 5 weeks or 6 weeks that he had played this year. So big week for Isaac Brown. There's definitely concerns, though, on the Louisville defense. Talk a little bit about what was maybe a closer than expected dub against Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point to where, after the first couple of weeks when they lost to Notre Dame, I thought to myself, with how disastrous of a first quarter they had, they were going to bounce back. I feel like this is still a good team. Now, after 6 games, it's one of those cases of when somebody shows you who they are, at some point you got to believe them. And you're as good as your record states that you are. And you shouldn't have lost that SMU game. And I'm higher on the Mustangs than a lot of people. Virginia was another team that it shouldn't have taken the last drive of the game to go down and be able to move the football and win the game. I mean, Virginia's punter, I don't know if y'all watched the game, sent a punt right into the middle of his offensive guard's back. And thankfully, Louisville was able to get the ball on the other 15. And Isaac Brown was fantastic. But it's just a situation where Louisville just can't put it together. Bad offensive line play, a defensive coordinator that simply is just struggling to find the answers with a really talented defensive unit. So truthfully, Donno, I'm having all these questions, and the fan base has got all these questions that every week we're seeing the same issues over and over. And at some point, I'm starting to lose my confidence that they're going to be able to turn things around. And now you have perhaps the best offense that you'll play all year. So forgive me, Louisville fans, I'm not really all that confident in this matchup for the Cardinals.
Well, and I look at it on the flip side. Despite the fact that Miami is 6-0, I've got some concerns. Heck, the team has some concerns. They're 6-0, and they held a players-only meeting during their bye week. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing that the leadership on the team is proactive, but they've given up crazy amounts of chunk plays. The last time Miami played was 2 weeks ago against Cal. They gave up 4 plays of 50 or more passing yards. So those are busted coverages, bad communication by the defensive backfield. And so I don't know. I know Miami has talent on defense, especially on the D-line, but Dalton, if they don't fix some of their issues, Miami, we could get into a shootout at noon on Saturday.
Cam Ward and controlled chaos go together like peanut butter and jelly. I mean, he is fantastic when he needs to improvise, but he's even better in the pocket. And Louisville is getting hurries, but it's not equating to sacks. A lot of that is the lack of pressure on the interior, and Louisville's pass rushers love to go way downfield too far than they're supposed to. And Cam Ward, if you give him the time to throw, which Louisville has been doing, he's going to feast. I mean, the passing numbers speak for themselves, man.
We got a lot more games coming up this weekend. that we want to get into. It's a pretty loaded slate coming up, including the Fighting J.J. Jacksons taking on Florida State. Can they get it done? Because Duke has never beaten Florida State before. Louisville, Miami, ton of games coming up this weekend. My friends, we're only getting started. You want to keep it locked right here on the ACC Squad. Guys, and I already know you're keeping it locked to FanDuel because, yeah, you look at the games coming up this weekend. We have some big spreads. We've got some surprisingly close spreads. You do have Duke favored against Florida State at home. Blue Devils are trying to beat FSU for the first time ever. You've got Miami favored by 4.5 points on the road at Louisville. You do have Clemson, who's been rolling, by the way, big favorites, 25.5 points at home against Virginia, who came pretty close to knocking off Louisville this past week. So, guys, you can find all these numbers, all these spreads, and all these good times at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you so much for making this ACC Squad your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin does an incredible job going around all the big games and all the big storylines. And friends, we got some big ones in the ACC this week. You have on Thursday night, tonight, Virginia Tech taking on Boston College at home. Friday, you've got Duke hosting Florida State. Miami at Louisville Saturday at noon. 10th-ranked Clemson against Virginia at noon. UConn hosting Wake Forest at noon. 12th-ranked Notre Dame at Georgia Tech at 3:30. NC State at Cal at 3:30. Will this be Cal's first ACC victory? They came close against Pittsburgh and Miami and Florida State. 21st-ranked SMU is at Stanford. So which of these games, guys, do you think is going to have the biggest impact on the ACC standings this week?
See, it's the big Dave Doran lobby that's trying to silence me. After I got after him a little bit on Locked On Wolfpack, I said I know which one won't. The game between two teams where neither one has a singular win in the ACC so far. I would love to say good things about this Cal-NC State game, but boy, right now this is the toilet bowl. It is two teams that are in the absolute pits of hell in terms of ACC wins, with 0 apiece walking into week 7. So I know that game won't be the one that matters. So I'm going to shut up now and let somebody with a team that is doing something meaningful and purposeful in the ACC say something.
I think it's set to be a big weekend in Durham, guys. I really do. Excited to see this one play out on Friday night. Teased it a little bit ago. Duke has never beat Florida State. 22 times these teams have gotten on the gridiron together. Of those 22 meetings, how many have been decided by one single possession?
I guess 2.
Only one of them. Only one of them. Outside of that 2017 game when Duke lost 17-10, the closest loss beyond that was 19 points. I mean, Duke has never been able to be competitive in a game like this. And our friends over at FanDuel think the Duke team is a 3-point favorite at home. It's Manny Diaz in his first year coaching against his alma mater in Florida State. Duke coming off a bye week, Florida State in an absolute down year. If it doesn't happen this year, I don't know when it's ever going to happen for Duke football. But again, that's the story. 22 meetings all time. Only one game has ever been decided by one possession. It's time. It's time to flip the switch and to see Duke knock off Florida State this weekend.
I mean, I pretty much think that Louisville Miami is probably the one with the most implications, because you look at the slate, and yes, I think that there's going to be some close games. Like Kenton said, NC State Cal doesn't really have much of an implication on the standings. I think if Louisville loses a second ACC game, they're out of the conversation, unless pandemonium strikes and Clemson, Miami, or SMU just kind of fall off a cliff, or Syracuse for that matter. I'll tell you one that I'm pretty interested in watching, although it probably doesn't have as much implication, is Clemson, Virginia. The spread is big, but guys, I'm really impressed with this Clemson team. I think everyone wrote them off way too quickly. I know things against Georgia weren't the greatest. Who they've been playing, it's not the greatest schedule either. But these guys are a buzzsaw right now. If you watch them play, the defense is as good as it is. You've got a good defensive line. The linebacker core is solid. The secondary's getting older and better as the week goes on. Cade Klubnik turning things around is the storyline in the ACC that just isn't getting the attention that it should. I mean, he's been deadly running the football. He looks confident as can be under Garrett Riley's system. And I hate to say it, Donno, if you make me pick between Clemson or Miami, whether it's in Death Valley Jr. or Coral Gables, I think Clemson's got to be the best team in the conference coming into this week, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've been, to me, the most complete team, since they struggled their first game. They've been the most complete team because our big concerns have been, and rightfully so, preseason were about Cade Klubnik in the offense. He's been putting up some gems really throughout ACC play so far. The defense has been as good as you've expected. And to your point, Dalton, from a Miami point of view, I think Miami has more talent than they've shown the past couple of weeks, but they've had defensive breakdowns that you've not seen from Clemson. So Clemson so far in conference play has been the most complete team in the ACC. I agree with you.
I don't know who's better between Clemson and Miami, but I will say this, because I said it after the Georgia game. I don't know when Clemson's going to lose again. I don't know when they're going to lose. And Dalton, to your point, I thought for a second when you were teasing the line, you were going to say how you're high on the Virginia Cavaliers. So I was like, what are you talking about here? They're playing Clemson. They're going to get annihilated. But I don't know when Clemson's going to lose. Please, on their schedule, tell me where their loss is. And I'm sorry I'm jinxing all of Clemson right now, but
it depends on how you view Pittsburgh, truthfully. And
I think Pitt is a good team, but I think Clemson can go in there and beat them. And I think they'll be favored to beat them, and I think they will beat them. So if they beat Pitt on the road, they're going to be 11-1.
I have another team I want to call attention to that's in the same conversation of when might they lose. SMU.
Yes.
SMU is ranked 21st in the country. They're 2-0 in the ACC, and their remaining schedule is at Stanford this Saturday, at Duke. They play Pitt at home in Dallas, Boston College in Dallas, at UVA, and then Cal in Dallas. That's a pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but that's a pretty favorable schedule for an SMU team that's playing good football right now. I think after Jennings took over the quarterback position, completely revitalized that offense. Is SMU going to make a run at this if Clemson or Miami stumbles somewhere?
They could, but someone's got to lose here. They're not all running the table here, all right? I have faith in Clemson.
They are. Pandemonium. They're all getting the table.
But they don't play each other. Then this is the problem.
Exactly.
Someone's going to lose. Someone has to lose. They're not all going 11-1.
Hypothetically, it sounds like
yes, we are. But again, that's not the attitude.
All I want to know is who and where is the question, right? And I want to give a lot of credit to SMU because we talked about them in the preseason as they could upset the apple cart here and there. They could upset some teams that are supposed to be, is living's good and life is easy and living is good right now. They were supposed to upset those teams. They are that team. They have turned out to be that team. We asked about, are they good enough in the trenches to compete week in and week out? And I'll tell you what, ever since that BYU game, looks like it. And I'll tell you, there's something going on up in Utah because those guys look like a phenomenal team. So that loss gets better and better each week. I'm going to tell you something now. We very well could see all three of these teams run the table. And in that situation, I'm very intrigued to see how it all plays out, what the tiebreaker is, who goes forward. And by the way,
I think the tiebreaker might be rankings because
it's common opponents.
Oh, okay.
If they beat all their common opponents, then what do you do there?
I don't know. There's no way they would leave it up to the subjectivity of a ranking.
Does everybody just draw straws?
Yeah,
on live TV, ACC Network, Packer and Durham, they're going to draw straws live.
I stand by my point. There's no way that all these teams are going to run the table. Someone's got to lose. I know they're not playing each other, but someone's got to lose. We're not going to have 12-0 Miami, 11-1 Clemson, 11-1 SMU. Someone is going to lose. The question is who, and the question is when. Now, I am betting that Clemson is going to run the table. I think that Miami is not going to lose more than once. that leaves SMU, and as good as they're playing.
Yeah, but if Miami loses once, that'll. But Miami only has conference games left, so if Miami loses one, then the other two teams would both get in because Miami would have one conference loss and they wouldn't.
I'm all in on the Pony Express, damn it. Give me SMU, free Sherwood Blunt. I need to see him on the sidelines for an ACC championship game. I need to see it.
I need Brian to now buy all his Stanford beer so that he can cheer for Stanford.
The Pony Bros are I hated that Louisville lost to him, but the vibes around the fan base, it's kind of like Cal. It's just a fun fan base. It's a breath of fresh air, man.
Yeah.
Well, I spent some time last week in the Dallas airport, DFW, and they've got SMU signs and billboards all over it. So they're all in on the Pony Excess. That's for sure. Like, that city has gone all in. They have ACC and all the billboards. So they're in on all of that stuff. And, well, more games to talk about when we come back. Plus, new batch of top 25 rankings this week. Anybody from the ACC feel left out? Is anybody ranked too high, too low? We got the squad together, guys. You want to keep it locked right here to the ACC Squad. Guys, sometimes intimate moments can happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. HIMS provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready whenever the mood strikes. Guys, HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. HIMS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on products and subscription plan. Thank you so much for making this episode of The Squad your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts, free on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so guys, Miami had the bye week last week, still 6-0, but they do not move up. They're still ranked number 6 in the country. Oregon and Ohio State, they played one another. Ohio State lost a close game, so they stayed within the top 5. They fell to number 4. You've got Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Georgia, then Miami at number 6, Alabama at 7, LSU 8, Iowa State at 9. Then you've got Clemson, the next ACC representative, in the top 10 at number 10. Tennessee, Notre Dame, BYU, Texas A&M, Boise State, Indiana, Kansas State, Ole Miss, Missouri, Pittsburgh ranked 20th, SMU at 21, Illinois 22, Army 23, Michigan 24, Navy 25. I'd like to open this up when we talk about those AP rankings. Are we full believers in Pitt? Because again, like for the third straight ACC game, you felt like Cal probably should have gotten their first conference win. Was not exactly a coaching clinic put on by Justin Wilcox in that one.
Look, I mean, Eli Holstein he's proving me wrong, at least. I didn't really, I know that he was a talented player coming out of high school, but I just didn't necessarily think that he was going to be able to be this successful this quickly. It's just one of those things to where until I guess they are showing me, despite them being 6-0, it's just that you look at their schedule, Cincinnati, West Virginia, North Carolina, Cal. I mean, nothing really setting the world on fire here. I've got Pittsburgh in the TBD category, and it's not fair to Panthers fans, but it's sort of how I treated Duke, when they were undefeated early on. And until Pittsburgh shows me coming up, they've got 2 really key games. They've got Syracuse, and then they've got at SMU. So I think there's still TBD for me, but I'll give them credit for going 6-0. I'm sorry, I'm not a huge believer at this point.
Especially after this past Saturday, like nothing's too impressive about a 17-15 football game against Cal. I mean, how they've been playing throughout the season. Holstein was able to put up more offensive totals than we saw this past week, and I just wasn't too impressed by that.
Well, just out of curiosity, who did Duke lose to earlier this year? Georgia Tech, right? Like, at the end of the day, beating teams that are not seen as world beaters is still beating teams.
No doubt.
We talk about Miami and how they're undefeated. And again, who have they played that would just jump off the fence at you and say, hey, that's a damn good team? And a lot of those games were very close. Every game that they played against a Power 4 team that's still going to have their head coach at the end of the season.
I will say Billy Napier is still gainfully employed, so don't sleep on Florida. Florida should have beaten Tennessee last week. They looked better.
I thought Tennessee was going to save his job.
Alex Equiminius Donno, please stop it. Stop it. Don't play around like that. You and I both know that man Billy Napier is going to be on ACC Squad next year. Don't worry. We don't know what squad he's going to be repping, but we know he's going to be here.
Ken, it might not make sense because logically what you're saying, I mean, it's correct. Miami and Pittsburgh, you put the levels of difficulty next to each other, and nothing really differentiates the two. I think it just all comes down to, and I hate to say it this way because it seems like a cop-out, just intuition, how you perceive both squads. Like I came into the season believing that Miami was arguably the best team in the ACC. Pittsburgh was one of those that I wasn't really all that high on. So I think it really just depends on who you ask. Now, have they exceeded expectations up to this point? Yeah. And I know that nothing of what I'm saying is going to be like, oh, okay, your intuition tells you Pittsburgh's not all that good. I think they're a good team. I still think they're a team that's going to end this season with 3 regular season losses. So
Dalton's 100% right. A lot of it is preseason expectations, preseason thoughts that still creep in at the midseason point. That's just how it is. We perceived Miami as a really good team going into the year. They haven't lost a game yet. And when they escape with wins, we say, like, credit to Miami because, hey, they found a way to win. They came back from 25 against Cal. That's good by Miami. They're 6-0 now. They're 6th in the country. And then for Pitt, we're like, Pitt might be mediocre this year. Oh, look at that. They started 6-0, but they have a 2-point win against Cal, the same team that Miami just almost lost to. But that's neither here nor there. But all of a sudden, Pitt, you still need I need to see more because we didn't think you'd be good going into the year. Now, cooler heads are going to prevail here. I think Miami's better than Pitt, but it just goes to show you a lot of it is
knowledge here, and it's going to make complete sense. And I would be like, just go ahead and do it in the next couple of weeks.
All I know is this. If Miami runs the table, they dominate, Pitt has 3 losses, hey, it is what it is. We judge by that. But I'm sorry, I work in HR, and I've seen that meme a million times where it's like the handsome, attractive guy, and he's like, oh, that skirt looks great on you. And it's like flirting. And then it's the heavier set, more awkward-looking guy, that skirt looks great on you. It's harassment. Guess what? As a person who works in HR, both of them should be treated the exact same way. I'm sorry. I don't care that Miami is the sexy guy. I don't care that Cam Ward is the Heisman favorite or a Heisman front runner. I don't care about none of that. What have I seen with my eyeballs? What have I seen out of these two teams? And from neither one of them have I seen them go up against a world beater and put the world on notice. Even when they're playing against inferior opponents, I have not seen either one of these teams dominate in a way that's like, hey, you cannot compete with what they're putting out right now in terms of against ACC.
But let me say one thing, though, because I watch a lot of college football, and honestly, there's only been one team in the country that's looked convincing in every game they played so far, and that's Texas.
Yeah, that's
it.
And that's what I'm saying. So to me, it's not fair to say, oh, well, this team, they're escaping with wins, and credit to them, they just found a way. And this team, oh, they're outplaying. They're outplaying expectations. They'll come back down to earth eventually.
But that's how it works, though. That's what the whole rankings are about. That's the AP top 25. That's the college. That style points matter. Preseason expectations matter. It's all factored in.
Style points can matter. Preseason expectation points, to hell with that. I'm sorry. I don't give a damn about none of that.
You have to make this point. You can justify that Pittsburgh is in the top 25. They 100% should be justified.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that you as your intuition speaks. Like, if you were not sold on Pittsburgh coming into the season and they've beaten teams that really, in all honesty, aren't that great, you're still nothing that's – I mean, yes, being 6-0 is 6-0, and you deserve credit for that. But if you're asking me if Miami and Pittsburgh play right now on a neutral field, who's winning that? I'm putting my mortgage on Miami. I'm sorry.
I don't know if I would go that far, but I don't know if I would put the mortgage on it. But I think
I do it on FanDuel every weekend. Might as well put it on Miami as we speak. So shut up, man.
Brother in Christ, you are the host of Locked On Louisville. If you put your mortgage up every week, you would be homeless. What are we talking about here?
He didn't say on his team
against the unders on the Louisville game. Yeah. That's how you triple that money.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not with him on the mortgage part, but I think to Dalton's point again, does Pitt deserve to be top 25? They absolutely deserve to be top 25. But if you put Miami and Pitt on a neutral field, I think we'd all agree Miami would be favored. They'd probably be favored by double digits too. Now anything can happen when the two play, but from the odds maker standpoint, Miami would be a double digit favorite on a neutral site.
It's preseason expectations.
It's going to happen. They're going to.
Well, and anybody can answer this, but if you were going to do like your own power ranking, not based on record, just based on like top 5 teams in the ACC, I'd probably, based on the last couple of weeks, I'd probably go Clemson number 1, Miami number 2, probably go SMU number 3. Then I don't know. I'd probably go. Dalton may not agree. I'd probably go Louisville, or maybe Syracuse 4 or Louisville 5, something like that. No particular order, but that's probably how I'd go. Duke, listen, Jackson, JJ, you've got an important job this weekend. If Duke goes out there and blows out Florida State, you're going to rise in my top 5.
Here I was, preseason expectations, top 25. I thought we were talking basketball already, guys.
I don't know about Louisville being that high, Donno, and I'm a huge Louisville proponent of Louisville. I'm going to be honest with you. Nothing that they've shown me against Power 5 competition this season has instilled all that much confidence in me. I guess things can happen if you were to shock the nation and beat Miami, but at this point, with what you've seen, you can't make a case that they're better than Pittsburgh and Syracuse on paper at this point.
So hold on here, because I'm the Syracuse host, so I want to comment on this. So I think the top 2, Donno nailed. I think we can all agree it's Miami and it's Clemson. I don't care the order. You can put them interchangeable. Yeah. I don't care. All right. Then you have your 2. You got SMU, who's undefeated in the conference, right? Their 1 loss is to BYU, so you got to put them up there. And you got Pitt, who's undefeated, period. So those 2 are kind of in the same. And then there's this big group of teams in the ACC. And I think Louisville is in this. I think Syracuse is in this.
Georgia Tech
is in this too. Georgia Tech is in this, where it's either teams that they could emerge or, you know what, they're not going to emerge. They got too many losses. But they can beat you. And I would put Louisville and Georgia Tech almost in the same category of like, I don't think they're going to contend in the ACC. I don't. But they can beat you. They're good enough to beat you.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. I think that me and Jackson are on the same page for once in our lives, because there is no way that, Donno, how do you look at teams that have lost games to not good teams and say, oh, I still believe they're better than Pitt? Even if your argument is Pitt only beats bad teams, guess what Syracuse didn't do when Stanford came to town?
I'm not talking about resumes. I'm talking about abilities, talent, ceilings. That's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know if I'm convinced that Pitt is in my top 5. We'll see. We'll see the rest of the season.
I'm gonna tell you like this. What did Matthew McConaughey say on what was that movie? What was it? Wolf of Wall Street? It's a weasel. It's a wazzle. It's a fugazi. It's a fugazi. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I'm sorry to tell you. All this woulda, coulda, shoulda. If ifs were fifths, we would all be passed out somewhere. But here we are, very sober, with Jackson sipping his water, happy that his boys got a win because of a kicker being good. They could have won by more. That's where we are. We're in the real.
Can we talk about the real discussion? Alex, are you going to allow me to drop my GoFundMe in the YouTube comments when Pitt and Miami play in the conference championship and I end up putting my mortgage on Miami and losing it all?
I will allow you to recoup your mortgage. Yes. We will plug that GoFundMe and tell you to pay your bills. I'm not an FSU fan, so I'm not going to make this weird thing that I'm going to say and it's going to not happen and then I'm going to have to eat my words. Or eat? No, I'm not going to go too far. You'd much rather eat your words
here, though.
Yes.
Can I ask Kenton? Kenton, do you think that Pitt's going to run the table?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay. So what's the like? I have him in that tier of like, hey, like right now they're 6-0. Like right now they're in good shape. They could do something. They're above the teams that have lost. But
what I believe and what is tangibly before us are two different things. What I believe does not matter to the tangible realities of what we're seeing. If we're seeing Pitt go out there and beat teams, even if your argument is they do it unimpressively, okay, so do these other teams. And then it becomes, well, it's about preseason expectations. The goalposts move for teams like Pitt. They move against them, and the goalposts move for a team like Miami. And I'm not having that. Not here. Not for my watch.
The history of college football. I mean, that's the history of like every college sport. The goalposts, yes, the goalposts move. That's just the world that we live in.
The original question that Donno asked was, do we believe in Pitt? And if, like to Jackson's point, if you don't believe that they're going to be this team at the end of the year when they have a better back end of the schedule, I mean, yes, you can give them credit for what they've done the first 6 weeks, but at the end of the day, if you don't think that they're going to be who they are right now, what does it matter if what you believe is not what's in front of you right now, if you still believe that they're not going to be where they are at the end of the day, is my question.
If the question is who of these teams are running the table, the only team that I know, I'm like, hey, if that team loses, something had to have gone drastically wrong. The only team that I think is in that category right now for me is Clemson. That's it. Yeah. That's the only team that I will put there. So does that mean that I should also degrade Miami or put them to, hey, you need to go down a little bit because I believe you're going to lose again at some point in time? That's not that. Again, I don't deal.
It's all factored in. It's all baked in, though. That's just how it works.
Not for me.
They're fine to be right where they are. I just don't think that they're going to stay there. That's the only thing that I'm saying. Fine to be where you are now. I'll allow it. That it's justifiable. You're 6-0. You've handled business. Other teams
it comes down to the talent comparison, and this is just one example. But I mean, who would you have more faith in to run the table, Cam Ward or Eli Holstein? I mean, you can go position by position on that.
If we're talking talent comparison, when has Miami ever lost a game to anybody in terms of talent comparison? When we talk about getting on the damn field, putting the ball down, kick the ball off, somebody's got to tackle somebody, somebody's got to block somebody, somebody's got to have more points than the other team at the end of the game. Have we talked about Miami consistently as being that team? Because every season, preseason, Miami's back. Oh, This is the year. They're back. They're ready. Doubt. And it just doesn't shake out that way.
I don't know. When was the last time Miami was ranked this high? Donno, you would know this. When's the last time Miami was ranked this high?
2017.
When was the last time they had a Heisman frontrunner?
2002. They had 2 Heisman finalists, but they came in 4th and 5th. 2001, Ken Dorsey came in 3rd.
There you go. That's why Miami is where they are.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see who emerges victorious week 8 inside the ACC.
Cheers to week 8. Yeah.
Cheers to week 8. Yeah. And JJ, you know, I'm rooting for you guys pretty hard this week. So let's get it done. Huge shout out. Thank you. Yeah, to Jackson Holzer, Kenton Gibbs, Dalton Pence, JJ Jackson, Grayson Boone. I am Alex Donno. We'll talk to you guys again next week right here on the ACC Squad.